Um, Hello. I'm trying to figure this out so I can see your comments on here. Why can't I see your comments? This is annoying. Well, okay. Question is, can you see me or do I look like a giant head? I guess. Okay. So it looks like I'm good on Substack. And I've got the chat going there. Okay. And then on Instagram. Okay. Well, yeah, this is just where we're at. I hope that you can see me okay. Let me see if I can make it so I can see all the comments at once. One of these days we'll get this right. You know what I mean? All right. If you are on Substack and you have any comments, please post them. And then otherwise, I think leaning back like this is probably the way to go. It's Tuesday Down Under. Okay, can you hear me? The question is, can you hear me okay? I've got the Shure microphone. And I'm in my bedroom this evening instead of in the garage because it's so cold here that the garage is just too. Let me see if I scoot over. Does that make me more of my face or less of my face? I think I want to go this way. That's what I want. Okay. We'll see how that goes. Yeah, sounds good. Okay, cool. Guys, we did it. We're all here. We did it. Fan-fucking-tastic. Okay. You're on. Whole face. Fantastic. Okay. I'm in my bedroom currently. It is Monday, January 26th. I should have been somewhere between Texas and Florida right now. Probably somewhere in Louisiana, I would guess, or maybe we made it all the way to Alabama. I don't know, but we didn't. So on Wednesday, we packed up the van. Lily and Jersey and I did. By the way, you can hear Roxy snoring in the background. We packed up the van and drove about 4 hours south into Oklahoma. It's 9 hours from here to Dallas, where the first show was, and so we drove about 4 hours. We were going to try and go about 7. We were really excited to get onion burgers in Oklahoma, and so we had mapped out the close. There was a Tucker's, which has really good onion burgers, just like fast food. And then we were going to stay in Oklahoma and then drive to Dallas the next day. About 4 hours into the drive, I got an email saying that the Houston show was concerned about the weather And I said, well, that show's is still like 5 days away, so let's wait and see what happens. And then about half an hour later, I got a call from Ellis, who's my booking agent, who was on vacation in Japan and was calling me, which is just sort of one of those funny things of like just how small the world is now with, him being able to call me from Japan when I'm driving through Oklahoma. It said that the San Antonio and Houston shows wanted to reschedule because of the weather. And so at that point, I was just like, well, we might as well reschedule all the Texas shows because it's only a matter of time. If the weather's going to be bad in San Antonio, it's going to be bad in Austin. It's going to be bad in Dallas. And then just looking at the weather reports, it's like Texas is going to get fucking crushed with ice. So we made the call to reschedule the Texas shows. I made a post about it. We turned the van around and drove home. So that was pretty stressful because it was just like 8 hours of driving to nowhere, which was frustrating. And then as the weather reports kept coming in and it was like, okay, we would have to leave by yesterday to drive to Florida to finish the rest of the dates. But then it was like, we would have to go through Tennessee and Kentucky. And then everything was just saying that like, it was going to get blanketed with ice. And it was like, there's no way. I've driven through Kentucky and Tennessee when there's ice storms, and you can just see the trees just kind of like go like this. If you look at like video from Nashville right now, you'll see that like a lot of those like trees just split in half. And so I was like, I don't want to mess with this, that drive. And then it was like, okay, so we're not going to make it to Florida in time. And then at that point it was like, well, then we might as well just reschedule the whole thing because who knows what this is going to be, like in, a couple of days. So we decided to reschedule the whole first leg of the tour, which we're working on now for doing it in the summertime when there won't be any snow. And then now, it's okay. It's frustrating for me and for the kids because it's like, 3 weeks of work that's postponed, but it'll be good. It gives us more time to practice. It gives me more time to like, work on stuff and write more and all that. But anyway, so we got this, like, it wasn't too bad in Kansas. We just got a lot of snow and it wasn't even super icy. So like, but my office in the garage of our house it's insulated, but it's not heated. So, consequently, I'm in my bedroom right now. So I've kicked my wife out of our bedroom and now I'm just talking to you guys. And it looks like you guys have all been asking lots of questions. And then some people actually sent in some questions via the email, which is cool. So, all right, let's go with Substack first because those people are the subscribers. Okay. Would you ever play an extended version of Walking on a Wire again with the extra lyrics about the sick grocery and no more shadows will follow me? Well, so we used to play, when we would play Walking on a Wire, we would play it. We just liked playing the groove of that song so much that we would play it for like 8 minutes long. And eventually I just started screaming random shit over the end of it. And so what I ended up singing was a line from a Richard Buckner song called Ocean Cliff Clearing. And it was 10 years now since the lights went down. I was running out of the sick room suite. Her name was faint, but her spark was font. What is it? No, I don't remember exact lyrics. No shadows left to follow me. And it was just sort of like a song that I had stuck in my head. And so that's what I just sang over it. And it was kind of like just gibberish. But it's funny that you think it said something about a grocery store, which is interesting. Greetings from Minneapolis. I hope that you are staying safe, and I hope that you are staying warm, and I hope that you are avoiding any contact with the secret police that is patrolling your streets. It's horrible, horrible, horrible. I'm so sorry for you guys. Okay, so let's look at Instagram, shall we? Let's go back to the top. Hi from Australia. Wow, cool. Hey, it's tomorrow down there, I imagine. That's pretty cool. Sad to have to reschedule the Austin show. So much ice here. Well, good. I'm glad that we made the right choice. Sure enough to know it's you. Yes, yes, yes. Yep, yep. Sorry, I'm just scrolling through this looking for a question. But did you get your onion burgers? So we did not get onion burgers, but what we did do is come home and I made onion burgers the next night because that's one thing I have learned how to do. Any good blizzard tales when you lived in Boston? Just honestly, living in Boston, just slipping on the ice during nor'easters. Not really any good blizzard tales necessarily. Just please reschedule Tampa. Nothing good happens here ever, so please reschedule. Well, I mean, some stuff good happens there. Get Up Kids played there last year, so I mean that's one good thing. We thought it was going to be really bad with ice in North Carolina, but we got lucky. That's good. And you guys are close to the ocean too, so I imagine that the kind of, I don't know. Do you get like the lake effect? I know it's an ocean, not a lake, but that sort of like the freezing or whatever. Do you consider Get Up Kids as a second wave emo band? And what are your favorite second and third wave emo bands? I don't really concern myself with the emo waves that much, or even the word emo or any of that sort of thing. I feel like that is for other people to decide. I don't have a problem with it. I kind of feel like if we're going to get lumped in, the second wave seems to be the cool one. The first one is probably even more so. And then the third one is the most popular one. My favorite bands that a lot of them were the bands that we came up with, bands like Braid, bands like Mineral, Promise Ring, Texas, a lot of that kind of stuff. Jimmy Eat World, of course. Jimmy Eat World seems to cross into that third wave thing because they actually didn't get big on the radio until after 2001. But yeah, for the most part, I don't think a lot of people, I would assume if anyone, that a lot of people in bands think about their genre specifics, but I don't know. We just always wanted to be the best Get Up Kids band we could be. Excuse me. Would you ever tour with Ryan Adams? Someone asked me this last week, and probably not. I just haven't heard. I like his music, but I have heard he is not the nicest person in the world. I love your split with Coalesce. Would you ever do another split with a hardcore band? If you did, who would it be? I would have loved to have done something with Every Time I Die, but that did not pan out before they broke up. I saw last year with HRC and 2 years ago at Janice the night before I went into labor. Oh, wow. The scene down here is so different than New York. Well, yeah, I mean, you should try being in Kansas. It's even more different than Florida. Winter weather patterns in North Carolina, too complicated to explain. Snow one day, 80 degrees, the rest. Well, yeah, I mean, I'm not a weatherman. I'm not a meteorologist, but I just know that like it's not just a matter of what the weather is like in the city you live in. Like if we could just be in Florida, then it would be fine. It's getting from where I am to where you are. That's the tricky part. And that's always the thing that like I think people kind of forget that sometimes when they think that like we're just, if we have to cancel a show, it's because we don't want to go to that city. And it's usually doesn't have anything to do with the city itself. It has to do with the travel to get there. So that's all. Do you think Henry Rollins has ever met Sinbad? I don't know. Any chance that Dashboard Confessional Get Up Kids was set right when the pandemic ever get to happen? So in 2020 in March, we were on tour opening for Dashboard Confessional when COVID happened and everything got shut down. Um, and I mean, we always love touring with Chris. He's one of our favorite people, and they're a fantastic band. But it's not really up to us. It's kind of their deal, his deal, their deal. But I'm sure we would be open to the idea if it ever came up. Let's go back to the Substack. It's super shitty. I took sick grocery as like mental hospital. That's kind of clever. That's pretty good. It's not great, that's for sure. What's a piece of gear you sold or lost that you still wish you had? Oh, it's too many to count. I'll just tell you one. If you look at my first book, Red Letter Days, if you look at the cover of that book, that's a 1972 Telecaster, Fender Telecaster Deluxe that I bought for $700 in a pawn shop in Boston in 1998. And I think it's like a $3,000 guitar now, which I would still love. Not that I want it for the financial part of it, just because I thought it was a really great guitar. And it's kind of what Jim plays now. It's the same sort of guitar, but he plays a newer version that he got from Fender. Are there any fan favorite songs that you were surprised that fans liked so much? Conversely, are there any songs that you're surprised that fans didn't like as much as you expected? The fan favorites that come up that are always surprising to me are the ones that you think are, and I think every band probably has this, or every artist has this, where it's just sort of like you think it's a throwaway and you just think it's some sort of last minute filler. The one that I always come to is Mass Pike, which was sort of a song that wasn't really anything, and we ended up needing another song to put on the Red Letter Day EP, which was what we needed to do to get out of our Doghouse contract, and we were really desperate to get out of our Doghouse contract, so we recorded that song just kind of as like filler, and then it's become a fan favorite. There's too many songs to count that I really like that people just don't get. There's a whole record called There Are Rules that I really like that a lot of people just don't get. So why haven't you and Rocky done something together? Oh, this is BMX Joe on here. Hi, Joe. I just saw that Rocky Votolato played the Makers 20th anniversary shows, which is crazy because he toured with us in 2005 with Get Up Kids, and that's when he was making that record, which is a wild thing to think about. Buckner was an awesome live musician. Did you ever get a chance to see him live? I did. I saw him live once at Davies Uptown in Kansas City. Let's see. Let's see about some of these other questions. I had tickets to Starland that tour. Yeah. There were a lot of good shows. And it was especially a bummer because COVID shut down that tour when we were in New York City right before we were about to play the biggest shows of the tour, which is frustrating. Can you sing? You really think you're bigger than this? No. Back in 2009, my friend and I drove from North Carolina to see you play the Something to Write Home About 10th anniversary show. We had to definitely pay attention to the weather on the way there and drive through Kentucky after a nice. Yep. Sorry, that sucks. That was a rough way to travel. Speaking of gear, I'm still bummed I don't have that Jazzmaster you sold on eBay in 2016. You and I were in talks because you thought the winner would bail and I was going to grab it, but then they got it. Oh, I'm sorry. I just got a new Jazzmaster, actually. Rob Pope is tricking it out, and he just put P90s in it. So I don't know how interesting that is for anybody who's not a guitar player, but he put a new bridge on it, and it's going to sound great. He's a very handy guy to have around in that regard. Have you got a lot of request sheets back? Are there any songs that you were shocked multiple people wanted? So if you don't know, when this tour not first got announced, but like earlier this year, I started a request line for songs that people would want me to play on the tour. And there's like well over 100 people have requested things, and I'm excited that some of them are things that I was already going to play. Things like "Strangled by the Thought" and what's it? "Turn Out the Light." I'm playing with Lily and Jersey. I keep saying the kids because that's what I call them, is the kids, and I have had multiple people online think I'm referring to my band, which also has kids in the name, and that's not what I'm referring to. This is not a Get Up Kids tour. This is a solo tour. My children, who I refer to as my kids, will be performing with me for the first half of the set. The second half of the set is all requests. So let's see here. The fan favorite question was something you said about Break Lines. Break Lines off of the record Problems, I think, is a good song. I just think it was an acoustic song that I had done years and years and years before. So by the time it made it to the album, I was incredibly sick of it. And so, that was just one of those things where you had to, everyone else kind of, this is a songwriting thing that I've actually talked about before in some of my songwriting workshops, is that sometimes a song doesn't get a chance to see the light of day when you write it. And so you have to sit on it for a long time. And if you listen to it a lot during that time that you're sitting on it, you can get really, really sick of it. And so the trick I found for myself is that I have to remind myself that at one point in like a past life, which that past life could be 4 months ago, I really, really liked this song. And I just have to trust my past self that they knew what they were talking about. These are the kind of things I should mention here, that like I do these songwriting workshops, and I wasn't going to do any more until the summertime. The ones that I did in January all sold out. And it's a songwriting workshop. So it's an hour of just one-on-one on Zoom with me talking about songwriting, lyric writing, the process or whatever. But since I'm home for an extra month, since these shows are getting rescheduled, I decided to open up a couple more slots for songwriting workshops. So if that's something you're interested in, go to my website, Matt Pryor. It's right there at the bottom, mattpryorandthesaltandseed.com. Click on the store, and you can sign up for a songwriting workshop. So yeah, let's see, another question. Could you tell us something about How You're Bound? It's such a great and overlooked song. Yeah, so there's a song, we did an EP. So the band broke up in 2005 and then got back together in 2008. And one of the first things that we did was we started writing songs in this tiny sort of sunroom bedroom that was in Ryan's old house. And we started just kind of coming up with ideas, and we picked 4 of the songs that we had been writing to make an EP. And I think it's a really strong, I think we do well. I think we do good EPs. I think we give good EPs. I think we give good records too, but I think that for some reason we particularly shine on EPs. And so there's a couple songs that actually there's 4 songs on that EP. It's called Simple Science. And the last song on there is called How You're Bound. And it's sort of a way of like expressing that whether the bond is with your family or your friends or your co-workers. And I was kind of writing about the band itself because we had just gotten back together, but I wanted to make it a little bit more coded so that it just didn't sound like corny, like I missed you or something like that. And so it was kind of talking about like the ties that bind, the things that bind us together and taking care of each other. But it could really be about any relationship in that sense. And the thing that always sticks out to me is there were two references in that song because it's just this sort of like moody, finger picky guitar piece, and then it comes in with what we referred to as the single ladies bass synth line, which is like this, which I can't unhear that influence in that part. But then also it was the fact that it starts with a drum machine, and then once the real drums come in, it sounds like it speeds up, but the BPM stays the same throughout the song. So it's a really interesting song. And then it's got this sort of like, it's this really dark verse, this minor chord, verse, and then this sort of like hallelujah chorus of just sort of like opening up into these big major chords with a weird like minor chord in there that I think is, I don't know. I just think it's a cool song. It's a very like kind of experimental, but like good pop song, kind of influenced by Radiohead, I would say, or some more experimental kind of sounding stuff. So thanks for the question though. That was pretty cool. Let's see. Someone's asking about the Salton Sea. Someone's asking about me and Rob robbing a bank, I guess. So my new record that came out in November is called The Salton Sea, and that's why the website is Matt Pryor and the Salton Sea. And the Salton Sea is a place, if you're not familiar. Oh wow, the Substack just froze on a really unfortunate face. I need to get better internet if I'm going to do this stuff from home. The Salton Sea is a place. It's a body of water that's in the desert in California, and it's at one point it was sort of an accidental lake sea that was that was made when water was getting. It's a whole thing. You can look up the history. Anyway, at one point it was a tourist destination where it was like a big, like it was a beach in the middle of the desert and it had waves and salt water and stuff, and it became like a hot spot, like a party spot in a way, a place for like Hollywood types to get out of the city and go into the desert, kind of like what Palm Springs is now, but with water. And eventually they realized that the lake, they call it a terminal lake, which means that there's nowhere for the water to go. So like it just evaporates. Like there's no egress. There's no like way for the water to leave. And so it just evaporates, and then it makes the whole thing incredibly, incredibly salty, kind of like the Great Salt Lake in Utah. And then it just became completely toxic. And so birds would die, fish would die. It was unsafe to swim in. And so now it's just this ghost town of a beach community. And a lot of like artists will live out there, and a lot of people who like don't want to be found, which I found that the California desert has a lot of people like that anyway. But then the Salton Sea in particular, there's a part of it that's called Slab City, which seems to be like where a bunch of like trailer homes used to be. And now it's very much like a place where, if you want to be like forgotten by society, not even like off the grid, but like to disappear, that's like not a bad place to do it. And so the record is about me hitting rock bottom, getting treatment, and getting sober. And I felt a real metaphorical kinship to the place, the Salton Sea, because I felt like all of my best years were behind me, and I was just, something meaningful back in the day, and then had no real value now, or was a ghost town of myself, a shadow of myself. So like I felt this sort of like kinship to that place, and so that's what the record's about. But it's a really the cover art from that record is from the Salton Sea. It's a star structure, like a kind of outsider art sculpture that someone made on the beach there. So yeah, that's what I think about it. There are rules turning 15-year-olds old. There are rules turned 15 years old yesterday. Oh shit, really? For everyone going back to listening to the deluxe edition this week, what's one thing that you feel should stick out in the listening experience? Um, there's a song that wasn't on the record and wasn't on an EP that's called "Walk 'Em with Grace" that I really like. It's just sort of a simple punk song, but it's about performing. It's a song. There's a couple of songs. Tommy Gentle is another one of that group of songs that are about being a performer and being on stage and uh, being kind of depressed about it. And like my relationship to performing is such that I don't dislike performing, but it's not something that like I crave the way crave is maybe too strong of a word. But you know how like sometimes comedians will talk about like if they don't get stage time, they get like antsy. I don't get like that. I don't necessarily I like being in the studio more than I like being on stage. Just because I like being creative more than I like performing. And it doesn't mean that I dislike performing. And I like meeting people. I like seeing people. Um, but so those are songs that are kind of like lyrically sort of wrestling with that fact of just sort of like, this is what I do. I'm good at what I do. And so I try to like put on the best performance that I can. So that song, Walk 'Em with Grace, I think is a sleeper on that record. Okay, so we'll go over to the Substack, see if there's any other songs from Substack. No. Okay, that's cool. Any other songs? So some people sent me in some questions. They actually emailed them to me, which if you would like to do that, I do these every single Monday at 8 o'clock, whether I'm on tour or not. And today I was supposed to be, I do them on Mondays because I almost always have a day off on tour on Monday because traditionally Monday is sort of like the worst day for a show. The only time I have a show on Monday on the upcoming tour is in LA at Permanent Records, which is on the March something, 3rd, maybe? I don't know. Look at the website. But this guy just, I don't know, Google me. Anyway, so I don't know what I'll do on that particular day, but for the most part, I don't have shows on Mondays, so I figured I could keep doing this even when I'm on tour. Today was supposed to be the first day that I did the AMAs on tour, but there's this Snowpocalypse, ice storm of the century that happens. So I'm at home. Anyway, what was the question? Oh, that wasn't a question. I was just telling you that people have emailed me questions before. So one of them was about, they asked me at what point did I know I wanted to do a solo record, or was there a turning point when I realized that I wanted to do solo work? And the answer to that is that yes, there were two points. One was in around like 1999. I got really into like Steve Earle in particular, but then also like kind of like Austin era troubadour singer songwriters, Townes Van Zandt, Guy Clark, that kind of stuff, Blaze Foley. What I was really enamored with was this idea that you could do something that was powerful and emotional and like really like moving with a song without having to be loud, without having to rely on like big amplifiers and drums and stuff, that it was possible to do it just as one person, which I sort of knew in concept. Like you see the old footage of like Bob Dylan playing by himself and you think that didn't speak to me at the time, but like for some reason this did. Also, the kind of like alt country thing was happening at the time. Old 97s were a big thing for me. The record Fight Songs in particular. So, and Too Far to Care. But so I decided that I wanted to try writing stuff that was more like acoustic based. And I had more songs than the Get Up Kids has multiple songwriters in the band, so and I wanted to just try something different. And then in 2000, so that's when I started the New Amsterdams. And then in 2008, I decided that I needed to get over that fear of just performing under my own name, because I think it always felt, I guess it felt arrogant, or like I thought too highly of myself to think like who would care about me performing under my own name. And I realized that like it was just kind of a business decision of like it just meant that I could have more freedom to do different things, different projects, different formats. You know, I got into podcasting for a while. I've done a lot of different ideas. It was just easier to do that under my own name, and so that's when I did my first solo record, Confidence Man. So more questions. Is the best part of you writing a song or perfecting it? Ooh, as a stand-up, my favorite time is when I have a joke and no one else has heard it yet. Okay, good question. I like this. So my favorite time is writing the song, because similar to what you just said, when you said that your favorite point is when you have a joke that no one's heard yet, my favorite time is when I have a song or even just an idea of a song that I get stuck in my head that no one else has ever heard. And then you extrapolate that, like what we're doing now, where we're getting together and having Get Up Kids practices and just sort of like riffing on ideas, and then like literally like hitting record on the phone and doing like room demos. And I'm just like singing gibberish, or Jim singing gibberish. And even those things kind of get stuck in my head. And that makes me incredibly excited. The perfecting it thing, like in the studio, I don't think that I like, and then when I do it, I find that the hours just fly by, and like I forget to eat. And I've kind of come to understand that that's what being in a flow state is. And so to me, that says that like I'm doing something that I really enjoy. But I don't like sitting around a lot. It's kind of, I think it's after years of van touring and then also just time in the studio, I like to be active. Like even now in the wintertime, like I bought a walking pad just so I can walk and do my, writing and stuff while still moving around. This is the most I'm going to sit down probably until I go to bed. And then, so yeah, for me, it's the, like not the spark necessarily, but like the kind of honing of the initial idea, and then like having that little rough kind of gem, as it were, is the kind of like really exciting part to me. But something that I think is interesting, and this is something that I've talked about in the songwriting workshops, which, not to be annoying, I do have a couple more of those available now, is that like people seem to think that being creative is all about the inspiration, and like inspiration does happen, but it's rare, and that really the whole thing is more of a discipline, and that when you have to like keep looking for the inspiration, and then once you have a little bit of it, you need to like take care of it, and like, almost like you're growing a plant, like you like planting a seed and then caring for it. And that's what like editing and re-editing and like re-recording and demoing and stuff like that is really all about. So it's like very little of it is just that sort of like initial like spark that happens kind of rarely, but a lot of it, it's like 90% discipline and editing. So it's interesting too, because like when my book came out, I had a lot of people who were saying like, this is impressive, you've written a book, that must take so long to do. And I would say, I don't think you understand how long it takes to make a record, because it takes probably just as long to make an album as it does to make a book, at least for me. Maybe it takes longer. It takes longer to edit a book than it does to edit a record, because just the sheer volume of it. But yeah, so these are the kind of things that I talk about a lot, and the things that I've been thinking about a lot as far as like creativity is concerned. and just like how to use it effectively and how to like not, get too in your own head about it, and or how to use that stuff, more efficiently. You likely Are you likely rescheduling the shows in the same towns? Or are you open to performing in different towns, for example? Uh, I mean, my first priority would be to reschedule the shows that I had to postpone in the same towns, but I mean, I'm not opposed to like looking into adding some stuff. Are your ideas yours and Get Up Kids, like that song is your baby, or do you all contribute and had an idea of yours really been run with by someone else, like they were more inspired by it? So I have learned over the years. So early on with Get Up Kids is I would bring a song in and I would be really like adamant about it. And I've learned over the years that like what really seems to work better is if I'm not precious about it. And so like now if I do write something ahead of time, most of what we do is we go in and we kind of like just sort of bang our heads against the wall and come up with like this sort of like molten thing that we then extrapolate on together collectively. But if I do come in with an idea, I don't finish it before I come in. I'll come in with like the concept of like a verse or the concept of like a chorus, maybe even a lyric or two, but I intentionally don't put time and effort into finishing it because I don't want to get too attached to it, because I know that it will get just ripped to shreds. Because I like to say, what makes the difference between like the songs that I write and the songs that end up being Get Up Kids songs is that everyone in the band has to put their stink on it. And so, it helps to not be precious about those things. And then also, if you think about, and this is again another songwriting technique, if you think about creativity as being sort of infinite and then also it being a discipline, it's like any idea that you have is not going to be the only idea that you have. And anybody, and this is also another piece of advice, if you're like in the industry and like people are trying to tell you that like this song's a hit or this is like the only, like when we first started talking to like major labels and stuff, they wanted us to re-record Don't Hate Me, and it was like, well, no, if you think that's the only good song that we're ever going to write, then you're not the right person for us to work with. So that kind of attitude, I think, helps you be less precious about these things and like sort of let them go and let them breathe and let other people's input into the things, because ultimately it's some kind of Voltron that happens when the five of us get together and we each make something that's better than it would have been if it was just one of us. So any chance of a future new Get Up Kids album? Possibly. We've been writing, so we'll see. I don't like to commit to any of that stuff because who knows, we could get all the way through it and just right now we're at the kind of blue sky stage where we're just sort of like throwing ideas at the wall and seeing what happens, because it's not something that we feel that we need to force. You know what I mean? We're at a point in our career now where we're very lucky that we can kind of just play the hits whenever the time arises. And so if we want to do something creative, we have to do it because it's really important and really meaningful to us. And so that's what we're trying to figure out right now. Let's see what's over on the Substack. Any stories about the recording of the record Wrist Slitter? So the unfortunately named solo album I have called Wrist Slitter, there's not really any good stories about that other than the song Kind of Go to Pieces. So we recorded, similar to the Salton Sea, we recorded all the drums at a studio in Kansas City, a different studio. But Bill, the guy who played drums on that record, on Wrist Slitter, who was also the drummer in the New Amsterdams, is not by trade a punk drummer. And so, but he really enjoyed, stretching his, trying something different for him. And you can hear me at the end of that song when it's got this massive, like just sort of like crazy series of, it's almost like a drum solo over the end of the song. You can hear me shouting on the talkback mic and just being like, more drums, faster, louder. And it's just like you can kind of hear that. So that's kind of the only interesting thing about that. That and that, you know, Eric McCann, who played bass and synth and a lot of other random shit on that record, lived in my garage for a couple days, like just or like a week. Like, you know, my garage that I'm not in right now because it doesn't have heat. It also doesn't have a toilet. So he was kind of just, I don't know, sort of squatting in my garage when he was making that record. So what is a smart way to avoid demo-itis? Okay. If you're not familiar with the term demo-itis, it's when you create something and, you know, usually now it's like you click voice memos on your phone, you sing it into your phone, or you make a demo in GarageBand or something, and then you're like, I love this. This is great. And then you have that moment that I was talking about before where you've fallen in love with something that no one else has heard, right? And then you come to the studio where you're like, I'm going to re-record that song that I love so much that no one else has heard, that is my favorite thing, and it just doesn't sound right. It just doesn't sound as good as the demo. And there are two things you can do. There's one thing you can do to avoid that, and that is to not listen to the demo too much, which is easier said than done because, again, you're getting excited about this new thing that you've written. So it takes a certain amount of discipline to just like put it on the shelf and be like, that song's good. I need to like get away from it long enough to like appreciate it later. The other thing you can do is just fucking put out the demo. And the best example I have of that is the song Campfire Kansas, which, you know, that's Jim's demo of that song. And we tried to write it as a rock song. We tried to record it as an acoustic song in the studio, and it didn't have a title, so we just kept calling it Jim's Campfire Song because it sounds like something you'd play around a campfire. And so we were in Connecticut, and we had a version of that song that was Campfire Song Connecticut, and then we're just like, this isn't working, so we needed to find the demo that we had done back in Kansas, and so then it was just the Campfire Song from Kansas, and so that's why it's called Campfire Kansas. And it's just sort of like we took the demo, threw it into the computer, and then added shit to the demo. So I like a lo-fi sound on certain things, and so you know, I think that works a lot of times, but sometimes it doesn't. But you should certainly, if the new version isn't working as well, then you shouldn't force it because it just won't turn out. At least that's been my experience. Back to the gram. Who in the Ghetto Kids would be most likely to write a book next or have the most interesting story to tell? I don't know. You'd have to ask them. Don't have to name names, but have you ever heard a band out there that's gotten over or big and they're clearly lifting you guys stuff or ripping you off? I've got a few thoughts. No, though people tell me stuff like that. Usually, like, I'm very aware of the things that I'm influenced by or the things that I've lifted. You know, rock and roll is a series of people stealing from each other, really. And so that goes for the band too, that I'm aware of things that we've lifted from other people. And so whenever I hear someone refer to something as our sound or someone emulating us, I just hear the band that we're ripping off. And so it doesn't really affect me at all. Have you seen the Springsteen movie? Those are essentially demos. So, yeah, I don't think that was demo-itis, Nebraska. I think he just was feeling like that was what he wanted to do. I mean, if anything, demo-itis in that regard would have been like if he had wanted to recreate those songs with a full band and then couldn't make them sound good. But I mean, Nebraska is a good example of something that can be like really like lo-fi and really like personal. I mean, it's kind of similar to just this sort of like interaction that we're having right now, where this is pretty lo-fi. This is just my phone camera on my laptop in my bedroom, and but it's something that's a type of connection that we're having, and I think you can accomplish that using a 4-track or recording demos at home, and you don't have to like necessarily spend $3,000 a day in a recording studio to make something that connects with people. Oh wow, the time is just flying by. Okay, so I guess if you have any other questions, I did get a question about someone wrote in from the Philippines, because we were just in the Philippines and they wanted to know about the craziest story from the Philippines. So I will tell you this. We played in the Philippines. We played in Manila for the first time in September this last year, 2025. And it was the loudest crowd I think we've ever had. And it was, I don't know, maybe 400 people. It wasn't like a terribly huge show. I mean, that's a good sized show, but it wasn't like, 10,000 people or something. But like the crowd was singing so loud that like I couldn't hear the drums. So sometimes we'll be playing shows where the crowd will be singing along louder than the monitors that are facing me can handle, and so I won't be able to hear myself sing. And so sometimes what I have to do is kind of, because I don't use in-ear monitors because I'm an old man and I'm stubborn and I don't particularly like them because they make me feel like I'm in a fishbowl. But the downside of that is that sometimes the monitors aren't loud enough for me to hear myself sing. And so what I do then is I just have to kind of sing on faith and just sort of assume that the 10,000 hours I've put into this will help me get through and help me, perform well. But usually I can find my place in the song because I can hear all the other instruments on stage. And that crowd in Manila was so loud, I couldn't even hear the drums. And Ryan was like right behind me. And so that was the loudest crowd I think we've really ever had. And then at the end of the show, and I didn't know this was going to happen, the whole room lined up in a line, and we basically did like a signing on the side of the stage. And it's like, it just seems like that's just like a part of their culture to do at the end of a show. It was crazy. It was absolutely crazy. So it was a fantastic show. I really enjoyed playing in Manila. Okay. Loving the new album. I'm stoked to hear the song about union transfer in Philly. Do you have a favorite venue in Philly? Whether past or present, looking forward to your show at the church. I have a lot of favorite venues in Philly. The North Star was a really nice place that I used to play at. I played at a really cool bar once called the Boot and Saddle that I don't think is there anymore. Johnny Brenda's is great. We came up playing at the church, and I've actually, this will be my fourth time as a solo artist playing at the church, and I've played 2 alternative rooms in the church, one during a snowstorm when my book came out, and then the video where the song Union Transfer, the video for the song, the live version of Union Transfer was filmed in the actual chapel of the First Unitarian Church in Philadelphia. And this show that I'm playing in April in Philly is actually in the church basement proper, which is like one of the first places that we ever played at, that I ever performed at in Philadelphia. And I'm really looking forward to being there again. We've played so many places in Philly: Electric Ballroom, Stalag. I played upstairs at the Troc. I played the main room at the Troc. The Troc was one of the great places to play because it was the first place that we played that had like actual security, which I know is a bummer maybe for you, but given that the last time the Get Up Kids ever played at the church, there was a massive fight and there were ambulances involved, and it was just sort of like it was just, and there was because there was no security and it just needed to happen. So the first time we played the Troc and they actually had security guards, I was kind of impressed. And then we've had just like really great shows there. So yeah, I love Philly. I'm excited to go back. I'm actually specifically not playing in Jersey or like kind of anywhere around there because that room's kind of big for me as a solo artist to play the basement proper of the church. So hopefully if you're in Jersey or if you're in other parts of, if you're in Lancaster or if you're in Allentown or somewhere like that, or if you're in Cherry Hill, which seems to be everyone I know who says they're from Philadelphia is actually from Cherry Hill. But that show will be something special. I think that leg of the tour, I think the whole tour is going to be something special. I get to like go play music with two of my kids, and that is really turning into something that I think is going to be really unique and cool, especially for me. Why always Cat's Cradle in North Carolina? Why not often chosen other North Carolina dates? Well, we played Raleigh last time. Get Up Kids did. I like Cat's Cradle because I associate it with Superchunk. So in the same way that like I associate the Casbah in San Diego with Rocket from the Crypt, there's certain clubs that I just really enjoy playing at places that I wanted to play at because I associated those clubs with bands that I love, and then whenever we would have good shows there, I would keep wanting to play there. So I was going to play at Eulogy or will play at Eulogy in Asheville, but that will have to get rescheduled for the summertime. All right, a little bit more, maybe a question or two, and then I'm going to go. But remember, I do this every single Monday. If you want to hang again, if you want to check out The Salton Sea, my new record, go to mattpryor.thesaltonsea.com. If you're interested in the songwriting workshops or custom songs, all that kind of stuff. And I'll be posting more. You can read my Substack. God, it's a lot of stuff to pitch, but it's all, it's all just sort of things about my songwriting and things that I do. So if you like what I do, I don't know why you'd be here if you don't, but could you see yourself recording and releasing another live concert album with your solo work or Get Up Kids? I would love to do one with Lily in Jersey of the arrangements we're doing on this tour. Have you bands and do you like the process of that? I don't know. Have you recorded any other band? Okay, Joe, stop it. My friend Joe, who lives in Austin, is trolling me on the internet. So there you go. Any other last questions? Oh, I just screwed this up. How do I get to the bottom here? Well, I think we'll just end it there. It's 9:00. Thank you guys for coming out. Thank you for joining me in my bedroom. I don't know if you can hear the snoring dog in the background, but I do appreciate my friend Joe in Austin. I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you finally got to make it. I'm sorry I didn't make it to Austin to perform for you. I'm sorry to everybody in, the South in particular of this, like, it's not my fault. It's because of the weather, but we will make up the shows and I will be back. I do want to go, but I just don't want to drive in this shit. And so it's just not going to happen right now. So come back next Monday. Keep an eye out for some other cool things that I'm going to be working on this month. I have a free month of just being home that I wasn't expecting to have. So Send me questions, mattpryorsongs@gmail. Go to my website. Check out all the bullshit there. Check out all my socials. I love you guys. Please take care of each other, and let's keep getting together like this, because honestly, having a community, even if it's, a bunch of strangers online, we apparently all have a common interest. So let's just take care of each other and spend some time together. And till then, see you guys later. Bye.